if you want to work on immigration reform, that's certainly something that the United States government should work on. I don't want it to happen during a lame duck session when a bunch of senators that no longer have any power are suddenly deciding to vote on something on their way out when they don't have to face the voters over the decisions that they make. That's the opposite of democracy, right? I don't like lame duck sessions, period. And we talked about this for months leading up to the race itself, that if Republicans took control of some of the houses of Congress in the midterms, that there would be an attempt, because the Biden administration knows that effectively the gears of legislative movement are going to slow down and or hopefully stop for the most part. They're going to try to push through as much as they can in this lame duck session. And what are we seeing? A lot of lame duck movement. Wanted to make sure that you're not missing what is going on right now with Joe Biden. Still has not been to the southern border since, I believe, Buck, 2008. The Biden campaign in 2008 came somewhat close to the border.
Can I just put this in the proper context? Because I tracked this one down. I think this is so interesting. They haven't even been to the border if you include 2008, meaning Joe Biden and his team. Joe Biden landed in El Paso, Texas, which is a city in Texas. Yes, it is along the border, but he did not actually go. In fact, he landed at the airport and headed north.
Okay. So he hasn't even been to the border if you count 2008.
Or maybe it was east, but he didn't go to the border is the point. I can't remember where he went. But he has never been to the border, Clay, is the end of the story. Yes.
That is their argument. They try to. It doesn't make them look much better that they cite 2008.
I mean,
because
it would be like if I said I've been to Disney World, right? If I tell you, Clay, I've been to Disney World, I'll give you all the Disney World recs you want. And you're like, great, Buck, so tell me about your Disney World experience. I was like, well, I landed in the Orlando airport, and then I drove down to Fort Lauderdale. That is Joe Biden's version of going to the border.
I, by the way, can give you every possible detail you need on Disney World because I have been to every theme park in America, it feels like, since I had 3 boys. This is something you have to look forward to, Buck. Whether it's Legoland, whether it's Universal Studios, whether it is water parks all over the place, and certainly the Disney experience with the 3 boys, I've been to them all. Having said all of this, Peter Ducey, you want to actually give Pulitzer Prizes out. Miranda Devine, who we had on yesterday. Let me just give Miranda Devine some praise in that interview that we had yesterday. One reason to subscribe to the podcast is we know you're all super busy. And it's sometimes hard to make sure that you hear everything. Miranda Devine yesterday, Buck, in the 12:30 segment, if I remember correctly, you can go listen to it, hour 1 on the podcast, was phenomenal. And it's something that I think everybody who listens to this show should listen to if you are concerned at all about big tech, censorship, collusion, which, frankly, I believe everyone in this audience should be. Having said that, Joe Biden was talking at the White House. Peter Ducey, who also, Buck, should get every award because he's almost the only person speaking truth to power inside the White House on a day-to-day basis. Biden is headed to Arizona. Peter Ducey, outside the White House, as he is preparing, I believe, to leave, asked Biden, hey, while you're in Arizona, big border state with a lot of border issues, maybe it would make sense to go by the border. Here's that exchange. Listen.
Why go to a border state and not visit the border? Because there's a more important thing going on. They're going to invest billions of dollars in a new enterprise.
More important things, Buck. When you hear the President of the United States, who's going to a border state, say there's more important things going on, that should be a clip that is grabbed and used by Republicans because, given the state of our border, there really is, if you're in Arizona and you're in Texas, very few things at all that are more important than the absence of border security.
And I do think that all of the polling for the midterm, especially in border states, showed that illegal immigration was a high-level issue. But back to our other point, if Republicans, even within the Republican Party, have other things that are going to make them tickets split, you're not going to, immigration is not going to overcome that. But it is a huge issue right now for us, one, to just make the case about. I think the American people, we're being a little bit there's a little bit of an incremental, nonchalant attitude to this, right? Over time, you get exposed to the number. Oh, 200,000 this month, 200,000 next month, 200. This is crazy, everybody. The border is wide open, and you had just yesterday Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona, Tom Tillis of North Carolina, circulating what they were calling, Clay, a draft framework on immigration reform. And the basics of it are create more processing centers for streamlined entry into the United. Remember, we already have processing centers. They're called ports of entry. The people who are showing up are not going to the ports of entry because they're coming into the country illegally and they don't even want to wait at a port of entry. So, and they're overwhelming Border Patrol by doing so, which also then means that the fentanyl just flows through unrestricted, which is what's happening right now. I mean, all this stuff is tied together. But the part of it that I found the most hilarious, first of all, some of the even GOP senators are saying, we haven't, like, this is a no-go. We haven't talked about this, because I think they realized the Gang of Eight was a real moment. That was during the Obama administration, where you had some Republican senators going along, and when people really got wind of what it was, amnesty.
Yeah.
And they felt that bait and switch coming. Here, the funniest part in the draft framework that they were sending around was they were saying, an expedited removal for those who are not allowed to stay. We're not doing any removals right now. Until you change that, I mean, when I say any, someone's going to say, yes, we are. Okay, there's, if you're like a MS-13 assassin and you've killed a couple of people, yes, we may remove. We're not doing any real scale interior enforcement in the country. And until you change that, all this other stuff is nonsense, Clay, because you're just incentivizing, making it easier for people to come in illegally and making it easier for them to get in process to stay. So you're just going to get more illegal immigration.
Right. And that's what even you hear from the immigrants themselves, is the reason why they started coming in overwhelming numbers is because Joe Biden won the election. And they all passed that message down along throughout Latin America and beyond. The southern border in America is open, and Democrats want you to be able to cross the border and enter into the United States. And the other part of this that I think is very significant, Buck, is if you want to work on immigration reform, that's certainly something that the United States government should work on. I don't want it to happen during a lame duck session when a bunch of senators that no longer have any power are suddenly deciding to vote on something on their way out when they don't have to face the voters over the decisions that they make. That's the opposite of democracy, right? I don't like lame duck sessions, period. And we talked about this for months leading up to the race itself, that if Republicans took control of some of the houses of Congress in the midterms, that there would be an attempt, because the Biden administration knows that effectively the gears of legislative movement are going to slow down and or hopefully stop for the most part. They're going to try to push through as much as they can in this lame duck session. And what are we seeing? A lot of lame duck movement, even with this stupid January 6th committee, which is still going. They're never going to end. And by the way, if I could have a wave a magic wand, I'd like a primetime investigatory dive into the 2020 election, in particular big tech collusion. I'd like to have that in primetime. I'd like to have these Twitter executives, these FBI officials who were involved in rigging the 2020 election. They want to focus on January 6th. I'd like to have that, and I'd like to have a primetime hearing on all the Fauci news and everything else associated with COVID. But they're trying to drag out this January 6th thing as long as they possibly can until the gavel officially passes. And that's not a surprise that they're going into this. But, Buck, we said this was one of our fears, was what might happen in this lame duck session when there are a bunch of congressmen and senators who are not returning to office that decide that they want to do something politically.
If you want to be, if you're a Republican too, I'm just going to say it, and you want to be on the boards of companies and you want to be invited into the corridors of power when you're anything that has to do with amnesty, corporate America, everyone should understand this. This is bipartisan too. Corporate America overwhelmingly wants amnesty, wants more illegals. And in some of these corporations, we talk about Disney a lot. Disney had a program. I remember talking about this when I was filling in for Rush, maybe 2015, so 7 years ago. It's been a while, the end of the Obama administration. And Disney had a plan where they had people, when they were bringing in the H-1B visa holders, They were firing people, Clay, and then making them train their replacements.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So big companies love to be able to exploit illegal immigrant labor. So the Chamber of Commerce Republicans, you can't trust them. And when you see what's happening right now, I think they're trying to lay the groundwork for anything that does not secure the border first, meaning that we shut down the illegal flow, is just an amnesty ploy.
A non-starter.
It's just a non-starter. It's an amnesty ploy. Anything that doesn't get the crossings down to their lowest level in 20 years, illegal crossings, is a non-starter.